lead for the India market. Prior to Western Union, he worked with Axis Bank, where he was instrumental in setting up inward remittances as a strategic business unit with buy-in from senior management. He also headed the rupee prepaid cards portfolio and launched various other game-changing products to establish the bank as a leader in the segment. He had been mentoring the project team throughout, and without his guidance, the project would not have been possible. His specialities include strategy formulation, business planning, new product development, international banking, payment products, money transfers, payment technology. He is also an alum of the MBI batch of 2004. And we have with us Mr. Radhakrishnan Ji, who is Vice President, Global Individual Risk Decision Science, American Express. He has 14 years of experience in credit and risk, fraud risk management, portfolio management, decision science, risk and big data analytics and operations, and India experience in operating in a KTO, setting up and leading teams, operating with people across the globe. His specialities include risk decision science, credit card scoring, application, line customer management and collections, and machine learning algorithms and applications, and underwriting strategy. He is an alum of the MBI batch of 2002. Then we have with us another alum of the batch of 1998, 2000. In between, he had started his own startup in retailing for a couple of years. Till very recently, he was managing the state of Rajasthan for ICICI Bank for SME lending, handling a portfolio about 15 billion rupees. He loves businesses and how they are evolving in this ever-changing environment. He has started out on his own again with Indraprastha Advisors, which aims to enable an individual to undertake personal financial transactions in efficient, timely, and transparent manner in her best interest, and thereby adding to the overall financial well-being. He plans to pursue a hybrid online and offline model. The online avatar is getting launched as bankerby.com that would aim to provide comparison of various financial products and services on offer in the market. He is an MBI alum of 1998-2000. And finally, we have Professor Anil Mishra, who is a PhD in finance from the University of Lucknow, and he serves as assistant professor in the finance domain at MBI. He is a gold medalist from the University of Lucknow. He has worked with leading business schools of the country. Prior to joining MBI, he was working with the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade in Delhi. He is a UGC certified trainer in management and carries over 15 years of experience in training and research. He has to his credits 2 books and 7 research papers published and referred in international journals. The book on financial management, co-authored by him, published by Oxford University Press, is a recommended textbook in some of the leading business schools and universities across the country. His current research interests include market efficiency and investors' behavior. Sir, we welcome you to the panel. We also have with us Mr. Sachin Agarwal, who is an alum of 1998. Without much further ado, I'd like to now invite the chief to present the research slide. Good evening, everyone. So before we begin with the presentation, I would like to introduce the team. I'm Preksha. This is Archit, Aviral, Shavanti, Swapnil, and Gaurav. So what we have tried to accomplish in this research is we have tried to build a business plan for the Western Union in case they want to foray into the cross-border transaction domain and build an online payment gateway service for it. So we have divided the whole research into the following aspects. We'll be first examining the market, what is the primary and the secondary research we have done, the product which we have formulated, the strategy we will be employing to position the product product in the market, and finally the regulations which will apply for setting up this payment gateway service. So, before we begin with this, we'll explore the challenges associated with the cross-border transactions. So, the basic reason why these challenges arise are the fact that there is the multiplicity of the banks involved. Given that it's a cross-border transaction, a lot of banks will be involved, which will be coming from the seller to the buyer. The whole transaction fee will be flowing through a lot of banks. So the first and the foremost problem would be the more direct relationship with downstream banks. Once the buyer has made the payment, and in case it goes, in case there's some problem with and it does not reach the seller, there will be a problem that the bank won't be able to trace the exact place where the whole thing went wrong. Second would be the cost. Since there are a lot of banks involved, they all will be charging a particular transaction fee. There will be, they all will try to earn a share from the foreign exchange involved in the whole market, given that it is a cross-border transaction, which will also end up being very expensive for the end user. Thirdly, there are the barriers to change. Given that it is a decentralized system, in case you want to, every bank has a different transaction fee, a different setup which they want to charge. So if you try to mandate a particular amount that they should be taking from the buyer, that won't be possible. Fourthly, we come to the data transfer capabilities. A payment initiator might want to actually present a breakdown of what are the costs involved and how exactly he has given the cost to the seller, but that won't be possible given that information might go haywire. There might be a problem with conveying it to the end user. Fifthly, there is a concern for the pricing, which is too high for the cross-border payments. The specific areas of concerns included are mostly the US dollar payments, which the exchange rate continues to fluctuate widely. And there is also the problem of the number of currencies which are supported by such payment gateways. And primarily, another problem is sending funds to destinations which fall outside the primary international payment corridors. Then we come on to the market for the cross-border transactions. So there is a huge potential for this market in India. We observe that there are primarily four markets which can be tapped into for this. There is the import-export market. Now the payment revenues associated with these transactions would be very high given that the transaction fee plus the foreign exchange components will be amounting to a high value. The exports amount to $465 billion in the Indian market, while the imports are $533 billion. There's a lot of revenue to be earned from this, from the currency conversion which the payment gateway is giving and the actual exchange rate prevalent in the market at that time. Next, we come on to the e-commerce business, which is the research which we have done to observe that 15% of the e-commerce transactions are made by the overseas buyers, and PayPal has also reported that nearly 25% of its transactions are cross-border. So this amounts to a high.
15% for the India market or the world market?
So it is for the Indian market.
15% for the Indian market.
Yes. Next we come on to the international remittances and the payroll, retirement and benefit payments. So this is another market. Basically the people who are living abroad and they are earning salaries, sometimes they may directly send the salary to their relatives and friends in the Indian domain. So this is another market which can be tapped into for the purpose. Next we come on to the transaction fees charged by the major players. So we have tried to analyze it for PayPal, which we have found that their transaction fee which they charge, the percentage can vary from 3.4% to 4.4%, and it is basically a aggressive pricing model which they have applied. So the higher the amount you are the higher the purchases you make, the lesser is the transaction fee percentage you will have to pay. So we have tried to compare it for the various services like PayPal. Then we have True Checkout, which has a fixed transaction fee of 5.5% for the transaction volume plus 45% for every transaction they make. Next we have PayU and CC Avenue. Their pricing plans are basically divided into different categories. For PayU we have economy, silver, gold and platinum. Depending on the prices and the transaction value, the prices for the transaction fee charged for debit cards, credit cards, the Amex cash cards, PayU money are all different. So their range varies from 2.5% to 3.9% for PayU, and for CC Avenue it varies anywhere between 3.6% and 1.5%. So there are three categories of online payments which are available for any user. There is the card payment. You can basically pay through your debit cards or the credit cards. Prepaid card involves basically you are buying a card with preloaded cash value and then you are using it for the transactions. Then you have the gift and the loyalty cards. Basically, you have the loyalty points which you earn for every purchase that you make. For instance, the Shoppers Stop, we have the loyalty points in the card, which can later be redeemed. Then you have the digital wallet payments, in which you have the preloaded digital wallet and the pass-through digital wallet. In the preloaded, you actually have the cash already in the account, and all you have to do is authenticate it with the payment gateway, and the transaction will be made. While the pass-through digital wallet, it is basically authenticated for you, and then the amount will be deducted from your account at the same time. And lastly, we have the alternatives for these digital and card payments. There's a direct bank transfers, the direct debits. The direct debits involve directly the sender and the buyer are their accounts are being transferred. And then you have the cash on delivery method, which is very popular in the Indian domain for the e-commerce business. You have the mobile courier billing, where the operator basically keeps adding onto the amount in your bill and it is redeemed later. And then you have the specials, which includes the bitcoins. So coming on to the market research that we have done, I'll invite Mohit to take over.
Thanks, Priya, for introducing the market for online border transaction, cross-border transaction. Now, to understand the market clearly, we did a exhaustive primary research. So, the objective of the primary research was to, we wanted to find out who the users would be for such an online payment gateway, as to what products they are selling, who are the buyers, where are the buyers located, as in which countries the buyers are from, how do they invoice to the buyers, how they receive the payments, how they do the reconciliation part. So that was majorly what we wanted to find out. So we conducted an in-depth research for that, wherein we called them and we collected data through telephone interviews. The sample size had customers from all types of segments, as in B2B, B2C, C2B and C2C. So I'll explain you what exactly the segments would be. B2B customer segment would be a business in India is selling to a business in a foreign country. Let's say a company like Jaipur Rugs. Jaipur Rugs sells its products to companies, as in it has buyers in US and Europe, but they have their own distributors in Europe market and US market. So essentially they will be sending the goods to their distributors, and then they would be further selling it to the customer. So that it is a B2B type of transaction. So apart from that, we to name a few, some of the companies were SP Engineers, Nithya Labs. Now coming on to B2C, everyone would have heard about Jabong. Now Jabong has a specific portal, jabongworld.com. It is specifically aimed at selling apparel to customers outside India. So it exports to markets in Europe and US. So their requirements would be very different from a B2B type of a market. So research was carried out to understand what their needs are. Then a C2B. C2B as in there are individuals who would be providing services to businesses. Now some of us would have heard about the freelancing market. Freelancer is a person who would provide a service to a business, like let's say web development service or a content writing service or SEO service. So this is another type of market, and then comes C2C type of market, wherein we sell, there are auctions on sites like eBay. So wherein a customer is directly interacting with another customer, and when they sell the goods, they need funds to flow from the buyer to the seller. So these are the four types of market. So sample size was 40, and broadly we tried to cover every type of every segment with almost equal number of responses. So now I'll take you through each of the customer segments and what were the key major insights from them. Now, when we talk about B2B buyers, right? I talked about Jaipur Rugs. Now, essentially what they are doing is this seller, a company over here is selling to a company in US or Europe market. Now, the number of such companies would be very less. As in, if I'm a Jaipur Rugs, I would have maybe 10 or 15 distributors. So what I can do is I can give them my bank account details, and then they could transfer the money directly to my bank. The things that matter for them are the transaction cost should be very low, because it's a B2B type of a segment, so the volume should be very high, so they want that transaction cost should be very low. they would not be willing to switch unless into other payment option unless you give them an option wherein transaction costs are very low. And I think when we talk about banks and online payment gateways, we cannot compare the transaction cost. Bank transaction costs are far more than what are the cost in payment gateway. So this is what we take an example of Jaipur, wherein it exports Xerox kilos to US in the Europe market. The order amount, the revenues lie somewhere between 140 to 150 crores. So they prefer only payment to payment gateways, account to account transfer. So the key insights we got from this research are these are high volume transactions. What matters from them is quick settlement. So bank to bank account transfer would take somewhere around 2 to 3 days. So which is very quick as compared to some other payment options. Low transaction charges as I already talked. And second is the last one is they are not willing to explore any other options because the bank to bank transfer is the most convenient option for them. So now moving on to the another segment.
This question here aside, when you say low transaction fees, do you have any idea of the range?
Sir, the transaction fees are somewhere in the line of 1 to 1.5%, which includes the transaction cost plus the foreign exchange rate.
Foreign exchange difference also is included in that.
When you say volume, high volume,
Yes.
is it that number of transactions are large?
So transaction amount is
The average transaction amount.
is that.
So now moving on to the business to customer segment. So the key characteristics here are they need to use a payment gateway because let's say a 48craft.com who exports handicrafts to US and Europe market, where an individual buyer like us would be ordering online and then 48craft would be shipping it from India. So there they need to have a payment gateway because they cannot give each and every buyer their bank account details and tell them to transfer the amount and then they will dispatch it. So that is where the need of payment gateway arises. The most important part for a company like 48craft or Jabongworld.com is the convenience part. The most important thing is convenience. I think the user, the buyers who are coming onto their site, for them the payment option should be very convenient. They do not want to end up in a situation wherein the buyer has selected the product, everything is fine, but he lands up on the payment page and he does not know how to make a payment. So this is very, very important insight we got from this segment. They would be willing to switch a new gateway only when the gateway already has an established network of users. As I said, if the end user are not convenient with transacting through a particular payment gateway, then this type of companies would not be willing to switch their existing payment method. They need additional services like invoice generation, generating daily reports, etc. because these accounts are handled by multiple number of people in the company. So the accounting department would be handling, the finance department would be handling this account. So the key action points we got from here is, first of all, they need a simple integration. That is, you just take up the code, paste it on the website and they are good to go. That is one point. Less documentation, as in when it comes to documentation, as in when a payment, between the payment gateway and the company. The third part would be instant customer service. Sometimes the transaction fails. They don't want that the buyer, they want that the amount should be resettled into the buyer's account. So that is important. Value-added service, as I said, invoice generation, report generation, reconciliation. And the other part is the gateway should already have a large user base. So these are the key insights from the B2C segment. Now we move on to the next part. That is,
just for your benefit here, I was handling clients like these, and in case they are selling services or products to a user base, B2C, they are outside. What happens is the users outside there, they generally do not kind of trust the Indian platform. So they need a big person, a big institution, a gateway which is known to those people whom they can trust or be comfortable with. And also what happens is the downtime has to be very less. Because in case the sale is lost, it is lost. And generally, these people will not have a Indian gateway player handling their transactions. So they would open up a new company there and get an arrangement with a local gateway player and then move those transactions to that. So that is a very, very good entry strategy point for people who are selling their services or products to customers.
And just to companies are they using any payment gateways?
Currently, they are using credit cards, and other thing is they use PayPal. That was another gateway. EPS was something they were also using. Like Forget Draft recently tried EPS, where the downtime was very high. The failure ratio in the transaction was quite high. So they were initially trying with EPS, but then they said that we are not willing to switch unless we are confident enough that the transaction failure rate does not drop.
So in case of 48 Craft, specifically they were using three payment gateways, PayPal, EPS and CCAvenue. Now when it came to CCAvenue, they were charging a high transaction cost of say 7%. And whereas PayPal and EPS were in the range of 3 to 4%. So they discontinued CCAvenue and they are now going with EPS and PayPal. Now again, in case of EPS and PayPal, EPS reported mainly downtime, means they required a lot of maintenance purpose. Every now and then, every say 2 weeks or a month afterwards, they used to get a mail. They used to get a mail, the sellers used to get a mail that we are down for maintenance purposes. So that was one concern area that we tried to we got from here.
So now moving on to the next segment, which is customer to business. Now this is, I talked about freelancers, wherein individuals like us would be providing services to business outside India. So the services could be like web development, accounting, etc. And the payment modes used are PayPal, money transfer or wire transfer. Now there are two types. Like there are sites like freelancer.com which act as a marketplace for freelancers, wherein there would be registered freelancers and there would be registered other users, let's say businesses. So it would essentially act as a marketplace for them, wherein it would connect the freelancer service providers to the businesses who want such services. In this case, the money would be routed through freelancer.com. So the payment gateways would be available on the website of freelancer.com. The money would be routed through them. They would ensure that the projects are completed. Only then the money would be transferred from freelancer.com account to the service provider account. So the account of the Indian service provider. Now it is important to note that freelancer ask their users, as in the service providers, to use PayPal because it is very, very convenient for them. And again, PayPal provides additional services like arbitration, so which is very useful in case the seller is not, the service seeker is not satisfied by the service provided by the freelancers living in the country like India. In that case, they could stop the payment. The volumes of payments are in the range of what an online payment gateway can settle. And so essentially the business model would be, there would be freelancing sites like Freelancer, and then would be lots of service seekers and lots of service providers. If we take about just one site, freelancer.com, so they have jobs across 600 categories, and the number of registered users are 13.8 million freelancers. The 13.8 million is a huge market. If we can somehow bring some big freelancing sites into the portfolio, then we could get a large number of users. So this is what the C2B segment looks like. Now we move on to C2C segment. Globally, but then these are the registered users, right? So service providers, many of them would be from India as well. So whenever other one seeks the service, the money will be coming to India. Now we'll move on to the customer segment. Here we talked about sites like eBay, which provides auction services. So eBay is a marketplace which, so as in case of freelancer.com, it will ensure that the amount is settled in the service. Both the buyer and the seller are satisfied with the service and all those things. Now, over a period of time, I talked about freelancers, right? Now, if I am a freelancer, I am providing services to some other business in UK. So, if I am dealing with him 2-3 times, I deal first 2-3 times through the freelancer.com site. Once I'm sure that the client is genuine and he would not be willing to, he would make the payment to me, I would be directly dealing with that type of client. So that it would become a C2C type of dealing, wherein they would the companies like freelancer.com would move away from. They would just bypass the marketplaces like freelancer and just transact over directly. So that is where again the arbitration service provided by PayPal is very, very important. So what they need is easy to sign up, no upfront fees, because they don't know what their business would look like. They keep on bidding for the projects and maybe they'll get 1 or 2 in this month, or maybe next month they might not get any other project. So they don't want a fixed setup fee, they want to be charged only when the amount is, only when the transaction happens. Instant customer service is needed and then value-added services. So if you talk about C2B, many of those would be switching to a C2C type of model. If you talk about app developers, right? So app developers currently are listing their app on the Google Play Store. Now over a period of time, they would also move on to listing their webs directly on their website, or they would be selling via other channels. So that is where again this type of C2C type of model would be very valid there, and then again comes the need of online payment gateway or digital wallet through which they could transfer the funds. So this was our key research. So if we look at the key takeaways, these are the segments, as in the B2B segment, B2C, and all the segments, and these are the payment gateways. So the B2C, C2B and C2C, all these are the relevant segment for us, not the B2B segment. So these all are the relevant segment for us, and now we'll look as to what our product should look like to solve all these segments. So now I will request Swapnil to take over the product part.
So what exactly product is the product that we are proposing? What are its sub-products and what are the services that we are expecting from such a product? When we say a payment gateway, in its very raw structure, we can say that we have a buyer who gets the goods from the seller. The buyer pays in his local currency. That local currency may be a foreign currency for the seller. Now this local currency of the buyer is converted into the local currency of seller by the payment gateway, and the seller gets his amount in his local currency. That's it. So this is the raw structure of the payment gateway that we know. From the customer research that we did, we found out that the business segment that a payment gateway can cater to are business to customer, customer to customer, and customer services. Now, what is there in a payment gateway that a particular buyer or a particular seller will be attracted, that why do we go for a payment gateway? Let's see what are the advantages for a seller and what are the advantages for a buyer. Now, in case of for a seller, there's an ease of execution. Say for a seller sells goods. Now, he does not have to intervene into the entire payment process again. He just has to sit and see when is the payment is going to receive, and it will be directly transferred to his account. So that's the ease of execution. He does not have to intervene every time to see where the payment is or to track the payment. It is the headache of the payment gateway. Ease of setup. As Mohammed rightly said, that in most of the cases what happens is whenever a particular seller wants to integrate a payment gateway, that time it's just a small source code that is provided by the payment gateway. That source code will be embedded into the source code of the seller's website, and it is done. You have the payment gateway service at your disposal. Then an online payment gateway it's just online. Means you have such a huge internet penetration that it naturally translates to a huge customer base. So a seller with a good payment gateway service with a large customer base will naturally have a huge customer base. Multiple account options. Now, for example, say a business has a payment gateway account on a payment gateway service, and he does not want the different departments to access the same amount of information at a particular time. Say for example, a particular department, he wants a limited access to that particular payment gateway service account. So that is possible in case of an online payment gateway. Accept international payments. An online payment gateway will give you a cross-border payment transaction. So you can accept a payment in a foreign currency, that is international payments. Then, as a payment gateway is a complete transparent source, so you can track your payment where it is and from whom you have got. So it helps in keeping track of the entire transactions. Now, when we come to advantages to buyer, we see that there is a credit card security. Whenever a particular buyer sets up an account on a payment gateway, he just populates that credit card information or the bank account information just once. He does not have to repopulate or re-enter the information again and again. So you have a credit card security now, which is an overhead of the payment gateway. So you are the buyer will be feeling secure that now the Means there's no point of worrying about the account getting hacked or something like that. So now there is a flexibility. In case of flexibility, it may happen that a particular buyer say has to pay some amount and he does not have that much amount in his bank, in his account. He pays to that amount, it will lead to some payment bounce, and there may be some charges or penalty charges charged by the seller in that case. What a payment gateway service does is it provides you an option to link different bank accounts at the same time. So whenever a particular amount is to be transferred to the seller, that time when the first bank account does not have the sufficient amount, the payment gateway will directly or automatically find the second account in the list and make the payment from that account. So that's the case of flexibility. In case of send money is basically we are trying to say what is convenience for the buyer. When you want to send money to a particular relative of yours in a different country, that time you can do the payment or send the money with just a click of a button. Then mobile payment. Mobile payment, as you know that along with internet, mobile users are also increasing. It is in a recent research, it was found that 56% of the world population is owning a smartphone right now. Out of that, 50% of the world population is using mobile as the primary source of internet. And this is expected to increase to 80% of the world population using mobile internet as their primary source for e-commerce payments. So this is a huge market. So online payment gateway just provides you an option that this gateway service will be used on the mobile also. So so a particular buyer when wants to make a payment, that time he does not have to switch to a website account or something. He can directly use that mobile platform to make his payments. So that is convenience for the buyer. Again, the most important is the buyer is not charged any fees. It is completely free for a buyer. No annual charges, no transaction charges, no processing charges. That's it. So now we come to usage guidelines. Now the usage guidelines are different for a seller and for a buyer. In case of the seller first has to integrate the payment gateway service. That will be done on a website or on the mobile app. So that will be done with the help of a payment button or financial planner. After that, the seller will have to create an account on the gateway service. Now after that account, the seller will be asked to share some documentation. For example, the business registration, the tax information, something like that. Then afterwards, the seller has to link his bank account to the payment gateway service. This bank account will be the account where your payments will receive. That time you'll have to give the PAN card number or the other bank account information that is required. Now the seller is good to receive payments from credit cards, digital wallet or bank account, any payment mode that is used by the buyer. At that time, a payment gateway is providing these services, so it will charge the seller some amount of fees. So that is, the fees will be deducted by the payment gateway and the amount will be transferred to the seller's account. For a buyer will create an account on the gateway service. The buyer will first link different accounts, as I said previously, that whenever a buyer has a credit card or 2 to 3 bank accounts and he wants to link all this in a hierarchical manner, that time he can do this with the help of payment gateway, prioritizing the different accounts from which the payment is to be taken for the seller. Then the buyer can now pay for the goods or service received from cross-border sellers or a large merchandise that has been purchased by the buyer for his own business. So after this, what we see is the products and services. Now the products and services are different for seller and buyer. For a seller, it may be an account link payment checkout. What we say here, what we are trying to say over here is, say a seller is selling goods, but and the buyer has a payment gateway service account. That time, when this account link payment checkout option is used, that time the buyer will be taken to his payment gateway account, and the payment gateway in that payment gateway, the buyer will already have his pre-populated shipping address, credit card information, everything. So that is convenient for the buyer. So in this case, the buyer has an account on the payment gateway service. After making the payment, the buyer will be redirected to the seller's website. In case of a payment button, say a buyer does not have an account on the payment gateway service. In that case, the buyer will pay through this payment button, through his credit card, bank account, whatever it uses to. And after that, he will be redirected to the seller's website. So these are two different scenarios whether a particular buyer has a payment gateway service account or not. So what we come to know over here is it does not matter whether your buyer has a particular payment gateway service account or not. You are going to get payment at the end of the day.
I'm not very clear on what basically pays through his payment gateway account.
No, sir. In case of first, the payment gateway means the buyer has an account on the payment gateway. So that time, the accounting payment will be done through that. Means he will not have to again enter the credit card information or shipping address because there he has account on the payment gateway service. So the data is already there. In case of the other payment product, he will be directed to the say a particular bank's payment page. So that time you have to enter the credit card, then give the shipping address, etc.
So it's able to go like a quick pay.
Quick pay,
Like a quick pay.
It's a direct link to the
bank's payment charge. Bank's payment.
different payment mode.
Yes, I'm trying this service out for the first time. So I will personally use this. But if I'm a regular, I will use it about.
Basically, registered versus registering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the payment pattern can be common, right? Just that
It just depends upon whether your buyer has an account or not.
pre-registered or registered.
But I mentioned this as 2 points because the source code that will be provided for both. So these are the two different products that can be provided for payment. Now, what is the new payment options? As we know that the mobile penetration is growing at a huge rate at that time. So the buyers are preferring to pay to the network carriers, and the network carriers are then transferring that amount to the seller's account. So what they are proposing is that the network carriers are not into this business to provide this service. They don't carry that expertise to provide this service. So what we say is, if Western Union or Western Union tries to target this segment and provide this service on behalf of the network carrier, then this can be a good amount of revenue for us.
Cross-border, you referring to global network carriers or
So global network carriers. Global network.
how is it really coming to the picture?
Sir, global network carriers means say a particular US and India. So a US buyer will pay to the US network carrier, but the link between India and US will be given by the payment gateway.
So I was saying that the network carrier, when you say network carrier, is basically a wallet.
Wallet, something like that.
Instead of paying by your credit card, debit card, you're paying by your wallet.
By wallet.
I don't think in cross-border you can use PPI without
Payment.
I don't know how many people have payment. So I think even if you're talking about this, we should be limiting our discussion to credit card, debit card, and PPI.
So since it's money coming from outside the area, the mobile wallet would be situated typically in US, so it's their regulations that are taken. In India, it's a bank. In India, the only way of receiving money is the bank account.
From a seller perspective, the source of funds doesn't
Really matter. It's just about the user. I think from a buyer's perspective, obviously how many different modes of payment he has. If he has, let's say, an Airtel Money, any other, he actually can pay through that is what I is. Is there an example you have seen there?
Sir,
On the last,
one, sir, PayPal on these numbers.
and what kind of mobile carriers are there?
So, it's low down, but that is a business that we are targeting.
So I don't want to see that under particular regulatory sector. I think that's one of the things that if they can cover as
So when you come to buyer, the buyer can pay any local currency, pay quickly and easily at thousands of websites because it is an online payment gateway. Then there is a secured payment for buyer and the buyer protection against faulty codes like Mohammed said, an arbitration service provided by the payment gateway. and payment can be made even if seller does not have an account as I mentioned earlier. So what are the additional services that we are seeing? Proposing over here is that the application peripheral interface is APIs basically and the SDKs, the software development kits should be provided by the payment gateway service, because this is just a small code that a particular seller will have to enter into his or seller's website. Then there is a multi-user access for business accounts, as I explained earlier, that different business accounts will have different limited access to the same payment gateway service account. Then as the online payment gateway, as the transaction is transparent, you can have the tools for reporting purposes like for bookkeeping, etc. That service can also be provided by the payment gateway. Then the email invoice is basically useful when the buyer does not have a payment gateway service. So the invoice, there's no need for maintaining a separate invoice software. So the seller can directly send his invoice through email to the buyer. Then the subscription handling, for example, in case of economics or business degrees or any digital subscription that we have, we need recurring subscription. So in that case, the payment gateway service can provide a button or say which requires this recurring subscription. So I'll ask Abhiraj.
So we have designed a product for Western Union to gain entry into this category, and to gain traction in the market, we have defined the three-pronged market entry strategy. So here we will be focusing on creating a user base, having an online account with the Western Union payment gateway, then approaching the merchants to use the user community to gain entry, and then positioning Western Union payment gateway as a value-added exclusive payment service. So the basic insight for focusing on the end user is that it is the community or the volume of the users that will ultimately act as an influencer for the merchant to opt for a particular gateway. PayPal has so much merchant because merchants know that PayPal has a huge user community. So for user acquisition, Western Union has an advantage to synergize with its current operations of money transfer facility. So it can leverage with a large existing user base. So for the new user acquisition, we would suggest to focus on the C2C category. As Bhumik has already mentioned, this category has the lowest acquisition cost, and it will be very easy for the Western Union to capitalize on this category. So the new user will sign up on the Western Union account, then he will get the account by inviting information in various steps rather than inviting a bulk load of information in one go. Then ultimately, instant gratification for all the users, or some specific amount of money will be credited to their account. So another referral program for all the users. So let's say I created an account with the Western Union, then I will refer to a friend of mine who will also create an account with the Western Union. Then both of the accounts will be credited with some specific sum of money. So as it comes with a huge cost, so we would suggest that as soon as the user community keeps on increasing, we would keep on decreasing the incentive that we will offer to the user. So reducing the amount with every successive step, and finally the complete estimate. So the target result that we are expecting from this is that as soon as the users will grow exponentially, it is the user community itself which will act as an incentive for further user sign-up and for the merchant tie-up.
What are you exactly? I got the later part of it about incentive, but when you say new user sign-up, what do I do? Some asking me, what is the asking me?
We are saying that you have already used community of the other facility. So you should capitalize on this category of
I'll use my existing
customers and tell them to sign up for the Western Union payment gateway option.
This is what PayPal initially did. Initially, they provided a $10 incentive to all those. So this is what we are proposing. So first thing is we can leverage our existing user base as in those who are using the money transfer services of PayPal. Western Union. The second step would be once that is done, the second step would be acquiring new users, which would be not the ones who are already using the newer users. So through such marketing campaign, we should focus on first acquiring the customer, then comes the merchant.
But they are saying that the customers for the new acquisition focus like freelancer.
So that's like
Bulk users are there, smaller but bulk users, and that is a market which is not there.
and they have the least acquisition cost.
So, but these
Because you are going to the portal.
due to new users.
So what do I tell user of freelancer.com? Because then it's a question of which comes first, the second or the third. Because either I have a payment gateway on freelancer.com and then I ask their users to enroll with me. Otherwise, if I ask their users to enroll with me, they'll say what's the value I should enroll with.
So first of all, you need to be a payment gateway on freelancer.com, and then you need to tie with freelancer.com so that it sets as in prioritize our gateway, Western Union gateway, and tell its existing users to sign up for this gateway because probably the transaction costs are much lower as compared to PayPal. The product is almost similar to PayPal, but the transaction costs are much lower. So this is one of the incentives which would be provided to the users.
The question would there, then I feel more comfortable. Would there remain there that why would a freelancer.com want to tie with the Western Union gateway?
Because we will give them a user community that just so much amount of users are already registered with us. So there is a market for freelancer.com to tie up with Western Union payment gateway.
We could already have the existing user base. We would first use the existing
User base overlaps with the new user base.
No. So it has its sites all over the world, freelancer.com, then co.in and all those sites. So both ways. But what relevant market would be someone providing services from India and someone from outside using those services.
Money remittance point to pay for the transaction for the bank fees if they don't go online. So basically this transaction done online, you could use an offline distribution network to push payments. So one similar example is where if we Western Union other networks you get to transfer a bank. So somebody in US can actually transfer a $10 so similarly, you just pay for the service using an online network for a transaction sold out.
One of our major strengths globally is, and online is there, not in London, but globally is that I have 500,000 Western Union brand associations, right? So, but all you talking about is here is about sourcing the, or let's say originating the transaction through a digital medium. Is there a case where you see that I can actually take the transaction offline from the, or the payment offline from the transaction? So the transaction still happens on your freelancer or your whatever is of the world, but the payment happens in an offline world where it goes to a receiving and offline. For that.
So, one thing, do not only international, but we're doing particular projects you could transact online, but they in cash often. That's where you use the, and where it was an entity looking to that publisher, and offline market they're targeting, but they found their ability to engage in the offline world to limited. So they are a big online bank. So that's where a offline network.
Maybe lower with the PayPal than the faster authorization. One of you mentioned that Jaipur is facing difficulty in the transactions in terms of faster. They have switched from EBS to PayPal because the transaction time is quite high. So this is some of the key points that we can integrate with the Western Union gateway. Next is some of the value-added services, these extra mile offerings that we can integrate with the current, that we can integrate with the payment gateway. So the value-added offerings are like fraud detection prevention mechanism. So fraudism is something that is plaguing every big player, be it PayPal. This may be through social engineering, automatic detection of data through botnets or phishing. So we are saying that these fraud detection prevention mechanisms should be very strong in the gateway because it can be the key selling point for the entire gateway services. Next is offering customizable forms which can be synced with the website. So currently when a buyer is transferred to the payment gateway, then there is a uniform form having a particular theme. But we can design a customizable theme which will in synchronization with the desktop or the basic theme of the seller. Next is affiliate tracking. Here we can integrate the SEO, SEM, cost per click, cost per impressions with the offering. Then automatic sales management, where we can get insight from the data that we are getting from the buyers and the sellers, and the report generation for a customized report for a particular set of customers. So here we have also required a merchant referral program. Their merchant will get a transactional cost discount rather than crediting a specific sum of money in their wallet. So PayPal is currently offering a particular set of money in their account, but we would suggest to offer a transactional discount. So the step will be, it will start with the user referral program, and then the user referral program will be dropped as soon as the early set of users will be signed in. Then after that, we will drop the merchant referral program after we achieve a particular target set of customers. Now I would like to invite Shravanti for the presentation on the regulation aspect.
So now coming to the regulations part, to get a better understanding of who the players are and what are the regulations applicable, we have divided it into two parts. So first we'll examine the entities here. We have the customer, who is the foreign buyer, a payment gateway, in this case it's the Western Union, and then the bank, and finally we have the merchant, the Indian seller. So we have regulations for two parts: the Western Union merchant switch and the Western Union customer switch. Since this is a payment gateway in India, it comes under the ambit of RBI, and because it handles cross-border transactions, all the rules for Foreign Exchange Management Act (FEMA) are applicable for this payment gateway. So this is a broad flow of what Western Union has to do for setting up this payment gateway. First, it has to tie up with the acquiring bank. Acquiring bank can be any Indian bank like American Express, Citibank, ICICI, or for that matter, any national bank. Next, the master account creation with banks and the merchant facility creation. This merchant facility has to be created for every merchant that is registered with Western Union. Next, certain documents have to be submitted at the registration phase as well as periodically for review. Last, we have the currency conversion because it's a cross-border transaction. Now we'll go to the detailed analysis of each of the steps. So first, when Western Union approaches acquiring bank, it asks for Western Union to get an approval from the RBI. So for getting an approval from RBI, you need certain documents like the past 2-year financial statements, the principal's credit history, or for the matter any sales material you're using, the solicitations, or list of company employees or agents. All these need to be submitted, and once you get an approval, you approach the acquiring bank. So with the acquiring bank, you have to create two sorts of accounts. First,
question there. Will Western Union be getting an approval as Western Union, or will Western Union need a bank to get an approval?
Western Union has to get
And then get a bank?
payment he gets from the customer enters his account.
Each merchant one account, or one account for all merchants?
Using the amount of master account and using that as a money market security. What kind of this master account going to be?
This is where that 2011. Yes, 2011. There are two accounts that are there.
By registration, you have the Western Union has to register certain documents with acquiring bank. So for example, the medical insurance. So when registering, it has to provide financial statements, as I mentioned before, and all the principal, the credit history of the principal, so as to, whenever if there is a case of default, just as a backup, you will have to review the credit history of the principals. And next, for every 1 year, after the accounts are closed, 3 months after the accounts are closed, you have to submit all the financial statements and the audited report to the bank for review. Of Western Union payment transactions. So now the key part is the currency conversion. This comes out of the FEMA, and for example, if Western Union, if a seller from India sells his product to a buyer in US, so he pays in US dollars. This US dollars has to be converted to INR before it reaches India, and this INR will be credited into the merchant's account in the bank.
is then INR.
So now coming to the second part of the regulations, the customer trust and convenience stage.
Before we go to the last question, does the regulations in any way specify how one can credit the, what is the underlying transaction, what does the underlying transaction have to happen in order to credit INR into the Nostro? For example, if I have a Nostro account with ICICI Bank, can I get INR transferred from another account or from another bank into that account? Or do I have to sell dollars to ICICI Bank and only then they can credit my INR?
Only you have to set the dollars. No transfer from your side to that. If Western Union maintains a wallet, then the amount the merchant gets from the foreign buyer gets credited to his Western Union balance. Otherwise, if he wants it to be transferred to his bank account in American Express, he has to request the Western Union, and then Western Union has to submit the previous day's transactions to the bank, and the purpose of withdrawing the money from merchant's account. So if it goes to the foreign bank, it takes even 3 days, T plus 3 settlement days, and if it doesn't go to the foreign bank, it takes T plus 2 days. So in any case, it has to reach the merchant's account in 7 days. That means Western Union can't even hold the amount received from the buyer for more than 7 days. Once it holds more than 7 days, the regulations that are applicable to normal banks are applicable on this forever. So this is the strict regulations of RBI after another PayPal case has happened like this. So 7 days is the maximum. I request Sachin to take up the financials.
Now, before we go through the financials, I'll quickly run you through the costs and the revenue rates that are applicable in this industry. One is the setup fees. So setup fees is the one-time fees that the merchant pays to the payment gateway to have an account. So, and the annual maintenance fee, that is the annuity which the customer has to pay or the merchant has to pay for every year for maintaining that account. And the transaction fee, that depends on the volume or the amount of transaction that is going through the payment gateway. So if we consider PayPal is currently not charging any set of annual maintenance fee from its for the merchants. So when Western Union decides to enter this market against PayPal, it may not be possible for Western Union to actually start charging this money. So in the revenue projections, we have excluded this part and just consider the transaction fee as revenue for Western Union in the initial years. And what are the fixed costs or heads that the Western Union would have to incur? One is the transaction cost. This is the percentage of cost that it would incur to process the transaction. The provision for losses. The provision for losses is which could be because of debit card, overdraft facility, or merchant not being able to deliver the products. So then in that case, Western Union would have to pay back the amount from on its own. The customer and operating service cost, this would depend on the number of customer service operators that Western Union decides to employ, and product development cost, which they need to incur to develop the cost. Selling general administrative expenses would be to run the office and etc.
Transaction cost. What do you mean by transaction?
So transaction processing cost as to how much cost the Western Union would incur to process those transactions.
You guys have left out the main cost that I would have, which is the interchange.
So that is included in the transaction. Yes, the interchange cost is included in the transaction. So out of the total e-commerce transaction that happen in India, 80% happens to online payment gateway. So out of the 525 million, we have taken 420 million as the market in the first year, and the Western Union, by taking conservative estimates, will be able to target just 5% of the market. So they'll be charging 4% transaction revenue. We have fixed the transaction cost at 4% for all the 5 years, wherein they could have increased it year on year. So we have taken very conservative estimates. To take the estimates of cost, we have used the PayPal balance sheet of 2001 when they were in the initial years as to how much expenses they were incurring as part of the revenue in all these 5 heads. In the transaction expenses, provision for losses, customer and service operations, product development, and selling and distribution expenses. So in the initial years, they had to
keep aside about 15% of their revenues for provision for losses, which is a huge amount considering the amount of transactions they handle. So based on these estimates, we have projected the market for Western Union. Keeping in mind these few assumptions, the growth in exports we have taken as 10% for every year up to 5 years, wherein it could be more, and the market share growth we have taken is 2% per year.
The cost in that the transaction expenses are at what rate?
So 35% is the rate.
And you consider that is the concern.
What they do is they generate an invoice, they wait for delivery, they ensure the delivery product happens, and then once the product is delivered, 14 days after that you invoice it. So it's almost like, it's like afterpay. So you are managing the credit risk again, because you don't need partners again. But they are looking at how to classify by having an afterpay method, or payment after delivery. It's actually they are one of the leaders in region and so again, how you solve transactions is again different for different markets. So one is easy for you to say that I'm a brand which is well known. This cross-border specifically, domestic is different, cross-border also deals with that the method in which how you can resist is how different.
Thank all of our alums and professors, basically our esteemed panelists. Mr. Agarwal. Yeah, Mr. Anish Verma. Again, short I think the only person who is not here on short notice, but has helped us a lot throughout our research, the team's research helped us a lot to be Mr. Khan.
Seniors for being there to help me out with this problem. I hope I do a good job out of this, and you can probably say I created a cloud union.
This is a topic that's an upcoming topic and that's it's been emphasized. That's why I see a lot of topic I hope this is a book as well. So, I would invite all our